the 5 Ds of real estate that exist in any marketplace. You ready? Default, disability, divorce, debt, and death. These all can happen whether the market is up or down, so we have to give you some niche advice on it. Joining us in studio, he's an award-winning realtor. You see him on The American Dream all the time. Our good friend George Lorimer. Good to have you on the show again.
Great to be here. I hope those 5 things don't happen to you, me, or
anyone.
or Suzanne.
I just what a sombering way to open a segment. But you know, these things do happen, and we got to be prepared for them.
Right.
And Suzanne, you, Suzanne Nickel, out of the law offices of Suzanne Nickel, you do a lot in the world of probate.
I do. Thank you so much for having me here today to talk about this important topic.
It is. So tell us what we mean when we say probate.
Sure. When we say probate, it's a court-supervised process of administering someone's estate. So what exactly does that mean? That means that when someone passes away with assets in their name, we're going to inventory and appraise those assets, pay off any of their debts and expenses, and if, and only if there's any money left after that, we're going to distribute those assets either to the beneficiaries of their will or to their heirs at law if they don't have a will, and that's called intestate succession. And probate's often a very long process. On average, it takes about a year, and it's quite expensive, to be very frank, because the attorney's fees and the personal representative's fees are set by the probate code in California.
So we got George here. We're going to talk a little bit about real estate before we let you go, but how does real estate tie into all this?
Quite often, the largest asset that people own is their primary residence. And if that's in their name alone when they pass away, or it's titled with somebody else jointly, but the deed says tenants in common as opposed to joint tenancy, then we're going to end up probating your real estate here in California, so long as it's in excess of our probate threshold, which is currently $150,000. And I don't know about you, but I'd love to find some property here in California that's valued under $150,000. So with the real estate, when we file your petition for probate, trying to get someone appointed in charge of your estate, we're also going to ask the court to allow that person to have independent administration of Estates Act authority. Now that's a mouthful, but that little authority is very important because it's going to save your estate some time and some money, especially in regards to selling your real property.
Okay.
It's going to allow your personal representative to, instead of asking the court permission to sell this property and having to have all these contingency hearings, it's just going to simply allow them to accept whatever offer they find to be reasonable and to send 15 days notice to your beneficiaries or heirs at law, letting them know that that you've accepted this deal, and that's how the property is going to be sold in those terms and conditions.
Well, you sold some probate properties. Explain what you see from your side.
Right. So the reason I have talked to Suzanne, and it's kind of important thing is before you get into probate, do something with the title to your property so that you don't end up there, and there's not cost, and for the beneficiaries and your heirs, that they don't have to go through all this. So we talked about it doing a living trust.
Absolutely. A living trust is a great alternative to avoid probate.
So these are things that avoid it.
Right.
Correct.
Right, so you build the trust or the will, but tell us about the living trust.
The living trust is a great vehicle to avoid probate. It is life and death instructions. It's going to help avoid a conservatorship during your lifetime if you become incapacitated, and
we were talking before the show, the Terry Schiavo case was a California case where she was on one of our Ds, disability, and there was an argument that became a national story between her husband and parents on what they should do with her on life support. That's the disability side. So that's the life side, and then there's also what happens if you do die, right? To avoid that probate.
And the trust, when you pass away, it's going to have instructions that are automatically going to take effect absent court intervention. So meaning we don't ever have to go to court if you have a properly funded trust. And when I say that word fund it means you've created this trust with a competent attorney, and then you have what I like to call your homework, where you actually have to transfer title of your assets into your living trust. So conceptually, I like to think of the trust as a box, and I tell my clients, now you're going to have to take your box and you're going to have to take your bank account title and put it into your box. I, as the lawyer, can take your real property title and put that into the box for you.
Okay. And all these things are done so that you can avoid leaving this up to the court system. And of course, I think a lot of people avoid setting up a will or a trust because there's everyone to talk about, here's another D, the death, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
And people don't like to talk about that. When I went through this process years ago, I actually kind of enjoyed it. You're thinking about the things that you work hard for and your legacy. The last thing you want is your family. I mean, how many stories have you heard of families arguing over the assets of
Absolutely.
their grandparents or parents that passed on? You want to avoid that. You want to create these instructions and not leave it up to the court. Anyway,
Absolutely.
I hope that our audience will visit you online if they have questions with any of this stuff. George, before we let you go, how's the real estate market?
Yes, still very busy. We're here in, fall to winter, and we're still seeing lack of inventory, property still selling, prices at an all-time high, but fairly flat since summertime.
2018 predictions?
Well, California Association of Realtors is predicting about a 5% increase.
Again?
In pricing. Yeah, again. And generally...
You just made homeowners like jump for joy if they're on like, yes, it's not over.
But for a lot of us, our lives have changed since the market was since 2009 at the low of the market. And we've had quite a cycle for a lot of years. And it could be coming to an end, and we could be basically hitting some flat levels pretty soon. So I would say don't try to time the stock market or the real estate market.
Right.
If you have a move that you've been in a property since, maybe you bought in 2005 or 2006, it's gone down and then back up, and now it's time to make the move, you may want to consider it.
Yeah, well, most important thing, whether you're talking about a probate plan, estate plan, trust, will, real estate, all big topics, my advice to you is get some tailored advice. These are two great professionals. You can visit them online. Of course, if you have any questions, you can visit us as well. More of the show coming up next.